Sophia at the back, who I think works at the Law Centre, has had her hand up for a long time.
Yes, I have to declare an interest. Why does funding new organisations necessarily mean cutting the funding of old organisations? Why does recognising new needs necessarily mean ignoring previously recognised needs?
If you identify new needs, you have to cut provision to old needs.
Well, I suppose only if you're deciding to stay within the same budget or a lower budget. I think we don't recognise enough need all the way around in this country. I think there is, we pay too low taxes. We have huge ambitions. We have huge social ambitions, and in the last 10 years, this government has had fantastic social ambitions and has spelt out visions of how things might be. I mean, you can start with things like Cllr Start and say that is wonderful. That really is a Swedish vision of how every single child can be helped when it's from birth or before it's born, all the way through until it's 5 and beyond, and every child arrives at school is ready to learn. It's a wonderful vision, but you can't do it on something closer to US levels of taxation. You have to decide what it is you actually want to be. If you want to be a country that doesn't have much in the way of social services, let alone legal services, advice services, if you want to be more American, that's fine. But we still have politicians who, on the whole, pretend that there's a free lunch and tend to say, here are all the wonderful things you can have, and by the way, you won't have to pay more tax either, and fail to present people with the very obvious choice that you get what you pay for. And I'd like to see all of our politicians being a bit more honest about that.
Let's put that question directly to Harry Phibbs. Local authority funding and finances are complex, but why, if you've got new need arising, you have to cut provision to old need?
Well, of course, if you increase the total, or in this case, we increased the total budget by 2%, so kept it in the same in real terms. But of course, if you were to substantially increase the budget, then you could afford to maintain all the funding for all the existing groups and to give all the increases that we've allocated to those existing groups we're already funding, we're giving increases to, and the new groups that are being funded for the first time. Of course, you could do all that if you increase the total, but of course we all realise then there's a problem, isn't there, in terms of then what do you put the council tax up? Do you cut something else? And so this is then the choice we face. And what we haven't had yet, what I haven't heard from Andrew Slaughter or from we haven't had from the Labour councillors is what they would like the total budget to be. If they're saying that they welcome the new groups that we're funding and they welcome the increases that we're funding, but they want to cancel the cuts, then clearly they're implying that they want a bigger total. Well, they need to level with us on that, level with you.
Well,
say what is the total funding they have? How would they pay for it?
And would you be in favour of putting up the council tax?
I ran the council for 10 years. If you want me to come back and run it, I'll willingly do it for you. You've made your bed, or you're making your bed in a pretty disgusting sort of way. And you live with the consequences of your own actions. If you want to come here and tell people that you're going to cut services, essential services they depend on, you defend that yourself. You've come here tonight, you do that.
I don't think we're going to get a figure from him.
If you've decided that you wish to fund other organisations, I know nothing about the other organisations, then that's a matter for you.
But
you cannot escape the
would you increase the council tax?
This council has come in with a policy of cutting the council tax. It didn't realise when it made those promises. When it made those promises to get elected, how difficult that is. What that actually means in terms of human misery and cuts and services.
He's dodging the question, isn't he?
Okay.
I'm not dodging the question. I'm not putting myself in your position. You sort yourself out.
Andrew, I want to take another question. The gentleman right at the back with the grey hairs had his hand up for a while.
My name is Mark Mitchell. Basically, it begs why we have these street services. The funds on the street services for the likes of ludicrous clean machines. There could be monies for housing and for homes and such like. We see these street services, we see in housing, we see vans that are parked outside High Street Kensington Library as such. The money's involved to have those parked vans, and there are various scenarios of promotions set up, and the waste of money on that.
So they're spending the money on the wrong things.
And the wrong things, exactly,
okay.
yes.
A couple of times. Lady sitting in the second row, in the orange jumper. Yes.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to say that as someone who's worked in the information and advice sector,
that the existence of a law centre improves the quality of every other information and advice service in the borough. Because people who work in those services are able to say, I am not a qualified lawyer. They're able to know when they've reached the limit of their competence, and then they're able to refer over to the law centre. And I think that the law centre has to exist to maintain the quality standards in the rest of the information and advice sector. Secondly, when I myself was having my post cut by another Tory borough, I put together a book of West London trusts that would make funding available. Every single clerk to that trust said, please don't put us in a book. We've got too many people applying already. I argued with them. This was public information. But every single one of the trusts in West London is oversubscribed.
I take a point. Let's go to Nick Seddon. He believes that private donations have a role to play. Can you respond to that?
Actually, the first thing that I wanted to ask, really, is a question to the other panellists and perhaps to the floor. And it's if we believe that the law services are of fundamental importance, and whether or not the councillors do or don't, if we do, are there ways of making them more stable? Are there ways of safeguarding the funding that comes from councils, not just on a year-to-year basis, but between administrations? Is there a way of embedding it in law, perhaps, to make sure that the money is more stable? Because it seems to me that unless the councillors or anybody in the political kind of arena is willing to make a commitment to this, it will remain forever a slightly slippery business.
Let me go to Polly Toynbee on this, just because what's being suggested is that perhaps if you take local authority funding out of the equation, everyone might be a lot happier. Is it the role of central government through legal aid to fund law centres to take what Nick's identified as the chanciness, if you like, of local authority funding out of the equation?
Yes, I think so, so long as they are accountable and run by the local community. As long as it doesn't mean that you hand it over to some central administration to run. And I don't see any reason why those two things should go together. I think there ought to be, law centres in every area that believe that, and it would vary around different parts of the country according to the usual formula. But yes, I don't think it should be down to the vagaries of local authorities, but the control should stay there.
Okay, very briefly, Harry Phibbs, just answer the charge, if you would, you're spending money on the wrong things.
To reiterate, the law centre relative to other law centres, the lady at the back can tell us what Hillingdon's getting, but I understand that relative to most law centres, the law centre here will be better funded than most others, even after this very big cut in funding. So obviously the law centre will continue. But certainly in terms of we're spending money on the wrong things, absolutely, if people can identify money that we're wasting, money that we're spending inefficiently, then that will be extremely helpful in terms of us, not just in terms of us reducing the council's debt and reducing the council tax, but also being able to spend money on worthwhile things that we actually want to spend more money on, and that certainly includes funding for the voluntary sector. So it's a constructive thing to actually come up with suggestions of where we're wasting money, and we certainly want to hear.